All of the views and opinions expressed here are those of the individual speaking and may not be representative of Konig American. At times, language may be considered vulgar. Listener discretion is suggested.
You are now listening to the Konig Behind the Wheel podcast.
All right, we're live. Welcome to a special episode of the Behind the Wheel podcast. I'm Scott. I'm the marketing director for Konig Wheels. With me is Joey Redmond. Joey is the founder of Wreck Magazine. He's been published in over 20 automotive magazines. Additionally, he's built SEMA vehicles for OEs like Hyundai and Ford. Finally, you can find his 10 Things Learned article available on formuladrift.com. So, after each event this year, Joey and I have gotten together, except for the first one. We've gotten together, we've run through the event, the highlights of each event, and we hope you enjoyed them. We would like you to leave us some feedback if you want. Go ahead. Why not? Maybe we'll try to improve upon things if it happens again next year. Never know. So that's it, man. We reached the end. We're done. All 8 rounds down. Irwindale lived up to the hype. You hear the chatter. I hear over and over again, maybe the best FD event ever.
I don't know if I'm going to go there, but it was really good.
It was a good event.
I put it in my top 5. How about that?
We'll say it's their best of FD event ever.
Yeah, well, you know, not everybody's that bright.
Well, right. All right. So it was a great event. I mean, I really do feel right up through Pro 2. It came with its good share of, what do we call that? Had its drama-filled moments. It also had a lot of, heartfelt, good old-time stuff.
I mean, yeah. You said Pro 2, right?
Well, I mean, Pro 2 definitely did.
Okay. I mean, I don't know if Pro 2 lived up to the hype, but...
All right. Well, I mean, it was a little bit. All right. Let's move on. So... Let's get right into it. Point number 10 from your 10 points here. Aasbo must hate the final battle at Irwindale.
I mean, yeah. So if you go back in the history books, for those of you that think this is the greatest event of all time.
Nice shot.
There was a championship way back when. I don't know why I'm blanking right now. 2014, right? Yeah. Where it was kind of a similar situation. Frederick Aasbo needed to win the event,
right,
to become champion. What made it even more interesting is that he was battling Chris Forsberg, and they met in the Final Four. So not only would Aasbo have to beat Forsberg in the Final Four, he then would have to go on and win the event. Okay. So he beat Forsberg in the Final Four. So that kind of, I think, just set up to be like a really drama-filled final battle, right?
Yeah.
And then it ended up that he, at Irwindale, so then he battled Daigo Saito in the final and lost. Very similar to basically this weekend. Neither of which I would say are my favorite Formula Drift event of all time. But,
all right, shot number 2.
Listen, it's up there. It was good. But I think I don't know. In my personal opinion, if you want to go and look at the best Formula Drift event of all time, you got to go to 2011 Irwindale.
Okay. 2011.
Yeah, because there were basically 4 guys that were in contention to win the championship at one point in the event.
Okay.
So it was interesting. Just saying, if you want to go back, if you really want to check out what I think the best event is, 20-second summary is Dai Yoshihara basically could have won the event.
Yeah.
He lost in the top 16. And so then next in line was basically Justin Pawlak. All he had to do was win his grade 8 battle, and he would win.
Right.
Justin Pawlak spun and lost. So then that put Chris Forsberg back in place. So Chris Forsberg made it to the Final Four. All Chris Forsberg had to do was win his Final Four battle, and he was champion, and he crashed into the wall.
Right.
Then Darren McNamara could have basically if he could win the event, he was in the other Final Four battle, if I remember correctly, or I don't remember exactly how it worked. This was 7 years ago. Then Darren McNamara, if he would have won the event, could have also won. He didn't win. And then after all of those guys that could have won, Dye managed to win the championship by like 5 points.
Full circle.
Everybody else blew it. It's kind of crazy. To me, that event was a little bit better because there were so many different drivers and elements like at play.
Right.
As opposed to this. But, I don't know. I mean, I think we really need to thank Forrest Wang for kind of really stirring the narrative here, which is another point. We won't skip ahead. But, right. So that's my summary. So it was very reminiscent of 2014. I mean, Frederick Aasbo must just be like, can Formula Drift be one battle shorter?
Right.
Or something.
Yeah, right. No, I get it. Listen, but I don't want to spend too much time on it, but really quick, what was your kind of thoughts as far as how Pro 2 coming to Irwindale for the first time maybe changed the atmosphere a little bit of the event?
I don't know. It should never be back, ever. Again.
Like that. All right, good. So we summed that up pretty quick.
I don't know. I know that the Drift League, I think their name has a Pro-Am going on there now, but it's just not a very... I'm of two minds, right? You can't expect guys that are like less experienced to ever get good if they don't have the chance to drive at that track.
Right.
But on the other hand, it's like, I don't think those guys should drive on that track. Like it's very high skill level. It's, it's just not an easy track to drive on. And I just think that in general, like the Pro 2 guys don't look good. Your Pro 2 drivers every opportunity to look good. And I think that track makes it, that track's difficult for a lot of the pro guys still. Right?
Yeah.
Like there's very few guys that can really run that thing. And so, It's like, I don't know. Obviously they wound up at Irwindale because Irwindale came into the ticket when they had already dedicated to doing Pro 2 at Vegas. Sorry.
Yeah. And
then, I don't think it's going to come back. I think that they don't have the pit space. There were a lot of issues, but I don't know. When you look at the contrast of how exciting Pro was to Pro 2, it was like it just really kind of missed the mark, I think, a little bit.
All right, that's fair. So point number 9, Dirk Stratton wins the Rookie of the Year in the Corvette. 2 points, man. 2 points between him and Van Kirk at the end, and Matt, he drew a tough battle out the gate. He drew Vaughn, and it showed. So,
yeah, it was really small margin. You'd have to wonder. Dirk and him qualified very close together in points. I forget the exact totals. Within like 5 points.
Right.
And so one got Jeff Jones, one got Vaughn. So it's tough. It'd be interesting to see if the roles were reversed. I guess if they both lost their battles, Van Kirk would have been Rookie of the Year still, right? Because he came into Irwindale ahead, yeah. So, this tough draw, like when you leave the margins that thin, you open yourself up to, tough luck like that, I guess, so to speak.
Yeah, but you know what? I don't think there's anything wrong with it. It was both guys were really battling out for it, and I would say they both did their best. This wasn't a gimme in any way. So, congrats to Dirk.
Yeah, I agree. I think, honestly, usually the Rookie of the Year battle falls in one of two minds for me. It's either given to a guy who's not really a rookie, and so it's kind of a waste of time.
Right, you said that.
Right, or the rookies are also bad. It's kind of like a
pick the best one of yeah.
Congrats on being like the best of the worst dudes. But Dirk scored 100. I think what he finished at 180 points, give or take. So Van Kirk should have been right behind that. Dirk finished in 20th. So for a rookie to be that close to the top 16, to me personally, I kind of bracket the two. Like, I take like the top 16 and the bottom 16, right? It's like kind of like two different like fields of drivers or classes. Like that's usually a good line you can draw and be like, okay, the guys below top 16 for the season are like, the top 16 guys. Sure. Kind of it's a mini like Pro 2 type bracket. So for him to be in 20th, I look at that as like he's in 4th or 5th place of like the second tier of drivers. And so for those guys to be that close, fresh out the gate, when you consider the gap from Pro 2 to Pro, less practice, faster speeds and all those things. I think both of them should be very pleased.
Yeah, no, I agree. And, the one thing that was apparent that Matt must have been just struggling over and over and over again, besides the fact that he's probably never been at Irwindale ever to drive, is the fact that we knew his car was underpowered. That's something we've talked about so many times throughout the season. And getting up on that bank, it just, there was really just, I think there were so many times that he had to straighten to try to gain proximity and dealing with that bank and not having the power. I just, he was doing his best just because he knew that it was kind of a give it all or nothing. But, I don't know how to say it without just saying it, but I don't know how he was going to be competitive. You know what I mean? I mean, there's things. I mean, we saw the cars that maybe didn't have the power level. There's always Chris Forsberg's memorable stint. Man, I felt bad for him. Anyhow, but I don't know. I mean, I was pretty proud of Matt. I think he went out, gave it his all, kind of had the right attitude with it, and I think he's a good person for the sport.
I agree. I mean, hopefully he comes back. Hopefully he can buy some horsepower.
Yeah.
And, give it a go for, I think both those guys, Dirk and Van Kirk, should just set themselves a goal of trying to sneak into the top 15. I mean, if you can make that kind of progress in a season, I think that'd be huge.
Right. We're moving on to point number 8. Forrest Wang proves he is the king of the S chassis. You said it before. You mentioned it. Might as well bring it home.
Yeah, I mean, he's the one we all have to thank for really making the championship interesting. I mean, in a way, here nor there, I don't know really what happened with James' car. I mean, he seemed to be beating himself.
Hold on, I lost you for that whole thing. So,
Oh.
You said go back to where he seemed to be. James Carr. You were talking about James Carr. You said he.
Yeah, I'm good. You ready?
Yeah.
He seemed to be fighting the car. He was really upset with himself afterwards for not calling competition timeout, saying that he had something like hitting his wheel. I think he was saying it was like hitting one of the intercooler pipes or something. I forget exactly what he said. You can go pull it up in the live stream. But I think regardless, I think he was kind of in trouble in that battle. Like he wasn't, I don't know. Forrest was really pushing him. Forrest really rode the walls. Forrest really looked good. He wasn't sacrificing a lot.
Yeah.
And like Forrest being a much slower driver was way closer to Dean than I thought. And so I don't know. I think that was a battle. Like if you're like a 240 fanboy, or like a big Nissan guy or like an S chassis guy. I've owned one, but I'm not really like an enthusiastic S chassis person. But
right.
I think if you were, that was like the battle you wanted to see, right? 2 S15s, 2 2Js. I mean, I guess the 2J part doesn't help, but like 2 guys that are like well known for like, when you say like name S chassis drifters, I think those are 2 of the first guys coming out of most people's mouth. So it was like a battle everyone wanted to see. Like the whole Worthouse battle thing, I think has kind of like worn on everyone. I think we covered that in one of the last podcasts.
Yeah, I think we're over it.
Yeah, so I think that's like the next version of that. So hopefully Forrest returns.
Right.
I've heard some things here and there. I think it's possible there might be issues with his sponsorship, like not from his standpoint, but from what I've gathered, I've caught some other things. They're doing a lot of regulation against the vape industry now. So
okay.
I think it might turn into like a cigarette situation where like they can't really like sponsor him as like an athlete or a race car. Like they're trying to like recategorize the product. So hopefully even if that happens to him, that, he can come out the other side with somebody new and stick around. I don't remember where he finished exactly this season. I'm trying to cheat real quick and find him in the championship. I mean,
right.
he finished 12th. I mean, I think he did pretty respectable. He started out great, obviously with Long Beach, and then he didn't qualify in, Seattle. I think if he would have qualified, I mean, that easily would have pushed him. He's only 30 points away from Dice. I mean, if he would have qualified in Washington, he would have finished about ninth, and when you consider his budget, his kind of team setup, I mean, it's respectable. I think a lot of people would like to see him back, so that'd be cool.
Yeah, he's definitely one of those guys that people seem to have a, good attachment to. All right, going on to point number 7. Travis Reeder fails to qualify and still wins Pro 2. So before we even get into this point, I'm going to take a quick second here and just say that after every event, we try to have a lot of our drivers write their own recaps and their own point of view, just kind of give us a glimpse of kind of what happened at the event, what they, from their point of view. Right now on our blog, we've posted, oh, you're leaving. Right now on our blog, we've posted what may be one of the most heartfelt, real, and honest recaps that we've ever posted from Travis, where he basically goes through all types of things that happened to him at the event. This was kind of one of those stories. So it's a kind of gives you the feels type of story. Make sure you go over to konigwheels.com, read his blog. It's worth the read. I read it. I enjoyed it. And, we read a lot of them. So I guess I'll set it up because you were missing. So anyhow, basically what happens is Travis is the points leader. He's 40 ahead of Dylan Hughes, who's in second. He essentially doesn't qualify, and we can get into kind of what that is, but he doesn't qualify, and that basically Dylan ends up qualifying in 15th. So going into Pro 2 top 16, all Dylan has to do is win his first battle. And then that's it. Points-wise, it ends up being that Dylan will be your 2018 Pro 2 champion. That doesn't happen. Right in practice for top 16, Dylan hits the wall and destroys a bunch of stuff. So I'll leave it to you for there. You take on your take, and then we can go into the whole story part of it.
I mean, I don't know. I'm really excited for Travis Reeder. I think he crushed it the whole season.
Yeah.
I think the way it all worked itself out was not a great advertisement for the Pro 2 brand.
No.
I mean, it's a little, Mickey Mouse to a point. Not to any of the drivers' faults, but it was just Reeder struggling to qualify, still winning. You don't even get to see the driver drive. I'd say the same thing if James Dean failed to qualify and still won Irwindale, right?
Yeah.
It's just very unsatisfying for everyone involved. Obviously Dean would want to be on the track. Other people would want to compete and knock him out. So it's tough, I know a lot of those guys work really hard. A lot of those guys put everything into their program. I think personally, one thing I would like to see is Pro 2 go to 5 rounds.
Yeah, you've said that before too.
Yeah, I just when you start looking at the math breakdown of 400 points divided against 4, it gets a little tough, Yeah. And it's interesting because my argument would be that a mistake counts for way more because the most you can get is 400 points. Where if you look in Formula D, your total points is 856, I think, with qualifying, give or take. So you're doubling that risk assessment, but it's unfortunate. I guess the way it's struck out. I don't know. I mean, maybe what would be cool is if they could do 2 West Coast, 2 East Coast. And you almost make it like a 2-event mini, like a region, and then you have a final where you scrap everything, and then it's the top 10 guys from the East and top 20 guys from the West can come and meet for one event. So that way, theoretically, that would actually decrease cost for teams, right? In theory, instead of 4 events, you have an East and a West, and then you kind of have a finale in Texas because that's kind of the middle of the country and the end of the season, right?
I guess, yeah.
I mean, no bias now being a Texan, but
understood.
You could do you have a Atlanta, Orlando East round. You do, I don't know, something on the West, Seattle and St. Louis. St. Louis obviously in the middle as well, but I don't know, figure out something like that, and then you kind of have a coming together final for the guys that are a little more serious. Because, I mean, to not take away from Travis and Dylan, and obviously what they did too, but like some guys came to this event that like we hadn't really seen this season and just killed it.
Yeah.
But obviously it's, region restricted and there's issues like that. So I don't know, I think Pro 2's kind of grown and impressed year after year. But when you look at like how Kevin Lawrence became champion last year, like when people didn't even like consider the fact that he could be completed the mission of winning the event, it's like it's tough to watch this year kind of how it shook out.
I agree. Listen, there's no doubt that on one end of this I'm biased because I like Travis so much and we sponsor him, but there was something that to me was way bigger than the sport, which was it's kind of what happened, the story of what Travis did. And so, all right, just to give the story for people that don't know, and you can read all about this on the blog, but basically Dylan crashes into the wall in top 16 practice right before top 16 starts, and basically front suspension, entire right side of the car, front and rear, total damage, control arms, suspension, etc. So Travis is in the stands because obviously he didn't qualify. He runs down to Dylan's pits. They're friends, so this isn't like just him running to anybody, but they're friends. He runs down to the pit, realizes what was going to happen, and before they could even get the tow truck back to the pits, Travis ran to his car parked in the AEM booth, drove it, just started it up, drove it back to Dylan's pit area, and got the car in jack stands. And as soon as Dylan's car came back and they assessed like everything was broken, both teams jumped on it and started basically dissecting Travis's car and moving the parts over to Dylan's car. They just didn't have enough spares. So he was basically saying, look, I mean, yeah, of course it's his friend, but that was the person that if anybody was going to have a chance to take away the championship from him, that was it. And there was only about an hour until top 16 started. So to kind of get all that work done and not have the parts to begin with, if Travis would have just sit back or even hesitated for a little bit, they would have moved. That would have been over right there.
Yeah, totally.
So there's one other piece to it, which is that, and this is, I think you'll agree with this, the drift community, the one thing that people will say that are inside the drift community is that it's very close and you have a lot of competitors that will always seem to come to your aid to try to help get you, back on track. And that happened here.
Yeah, it's very different from like if you have any experience in like the drag racing,
right?
World, like the sport kind of drag racing world,
right?
That is one very stark difference. Like when you're over there, even now, but like more so back in its like heyday, like people are, like, oh, don't look over here.
Yeah, very like not going to show you anything under my hood. Stay out of my pit area. Very tight-lipped.
Mm-hmm.
But
so yes, I agree with that point.
Yeah, but that didn't happen here. There was a great deal of sportsmanship that did happen. Travis made sure that at least there was a potential that somebody else could have the championship won. Listen, you just don't see that every day. You don't see that from a lot of people. You don't see that from a lot of teams, and you don't see that in a lot of sports. So I think I think it's a good measure and a good example of really what some of the drift community is all about. So I thought that was worth tying in there.
I'm with you.
Cool. So now we're moving on to point number 6. Will the Ferrari project continue? I agree. This is turning out to be very strange. Was it true, valid that they really did make some sort of request about the width of his car?
Oh, I have no idea.
Oh, I heard that at one point, and I wasn't sure if that was a truth or kind of just a funny exaggeration.
What about the width of his car?
I heard somebody say, and I actually think it was Jared Deanda, maybe on the on the live stream. He might have even, I think he said like something about the FD or maybe I don't know his team. They were trying to basically say that they really wanted him to get the width of his car down, and I don't know if did that happen. It looked like almost like the front end whether they added flares or they brought the wheels in a little bit. I mean, I'm not sure if that was really a thing or if it was just a joke. So,
Well, I don't know. He did. I mean, the one funny thing is, and all the like, I don't know, like Stance Facebook groups, Hype Beast car blogs. A lot of people have been making fun of the fact that his real wheel broke when he crashed Irwindale, but yet his like 50 mil eBay spacer, or they've been calling it eBay spacer, is just like sitting on the hub just fine.
yeah.
And like OZ racing wheels shattered, or it might not have been OZ, whatever wheels he runs. But that was kind of funny. But I mean, maybe after he crashed, they bailed on the spacers or something, just trying to bring in that. I don't know.
I'm not sure, and it's not even that important. But I think your point is like how long will this go on? This car has taken quite a bit the abuse this year.
Yeah, and from what I understand, it's not his. Like he loaned it, or I don't know. There's a weird structure in place of how he's like competing in that thing.
Right.
But I don't know. I think he's a great guy. I think obviously from a performance standpoint, he did really bad. I mean, he was fourth out of all the rookies. He wasn't terrible. I mean, if I look through his statistics, he qualified top 32 for every round except the third round, except Atlanta. He didn't actually win a battle, but I mean, he managed to qualify, stayed consistent. I mean, he's sitting on the exact same amount of points as Kyle Mohan, who's been around for 14 seasons.
Right.
Who also has a difficult chassis. And he's also on the same amount of points as Kevin Lawrence, former Pro 2 champion. So for him coming in the first season, I mean, it's not that far off. He's not like a world apart, right? He didn't finish in last or something. The car needs some work, I think, for sure. But I don't know. That's what I guess where I'm torn is like, does he have the ability or the time or the funds to like make it a little more competitive and come back? Then I kind of definitely want to see it. If he's just gonna not qualify it ever again, or like obviously he qualified, but like if he's never gonna win a tandem battle, yeah, maybe he can go back to Italy or wherever. But I like the idea of the car. I think it's really, I think
Worldly.
It's just. Well, it's at the end of the day, I think it's just good for the sport. I think you got a lot of people, when you look at like the advent of like what Vaughn, I think did, like, Vaughn and his branding and partnership with Ford, honestly, I think changed the perception of drifting to the muscle car guy, right? Like,
of course.
When we were younger in 2005, 2006, it was like, oh, all these,
just another import sport.
Yeah, just another bunch of junky Rice rockets banging, around in their four cylinders. And like, Vaughn and Ford's investment, I think, really transcended that into like, it's very socially acceptable. I think a lot more Mustang and Camaro guys than you think, given unlimited funds, would probably go drifting as opposed to drag racing.
Right.
And all things equal. And then, so I think there's that avenue as well. Like, I don't really think there's ever been a really good ambassador for the European car scene. I mean, Michael S. has been a very tried and true BMW guy, but he doesn't have like a marketing persona, I guess, so to speak. No one's really ever driven a Mercedes. And so I think it's great to have like the high end, like a Ferrari, because I think even people who are like very like Euro snob car wise will take a look and go, oh, 599. Oh, interesting. Let me watch this. And so I just think any of those avenues that you can open to help grow the sport, I think it's a big one. And honestly, like I saw more promotion of his car, like off like brand automotive stuff than anyone else. Like, they covered him in like a 2-part series on VinWiki, which is like a big YouTube channel. That's really more, not like our industry style, but I think it's very interesting. And so, I don't know. I just think it's great for the sport. I mean, if he can improve it and be a little more competitive, I think that'd be huge.
Yeah, there's definitely some buzz around it. It's almost like, I guess you want to get Samuel Hubenet to bring that Lambo in.
That'd be great. I'm in. Let's see that. I don't think he's into that idea.
Yeah, I'm sure not. Point number 5, Europeans dominate the American drift world and sweep the podium. I mean, James Dean. I don't care what you want to say about him. He's pretty good.
I mean, I don't even want to make this one about James Dean because obviously he has his own time to shine, but it's pretty embarrassing, I think, to me.
Is it though?
100%.
But here's why I don't think so. Because Formula Drift has spent a lot of time trying to legitimize themselves as the world's official, go-to in drifting series. And I think if you have an American-dominated series and a majority of the field is American that runs it, you could make the argument that it's not really a worldly series. And I not that I'm saying that that the entire top half of the field has to be European. I'm just saying that, keeping these guys in the mix, I don't know that it's an embarrassment. I mean, it's a shame that we have, out of the entire country here, and when the series is run domestically, we can't find anybody else that can maybe podium, be a champion. I'm just saying.
I think it's it's a shame to me as an American that we cannot be competitive. Drifting doesn't mean that it's okay that we're not good.
You were gone for a long time.
Oh, great.
Like we're gonna have to almost go back to the beginning. That's how bad it was. I don't even see you now. Oh wow, we're back. How you doing?
Great.
You sure?
I think so.
So
I can just kind of pick up and you can put it together.
Yes.
Just for me, I think, obviously Formula Drift, I think, is the world standard in drifting. I think if you want to be considered a world champion, you have to win Formula Drift.
Right.
But at the same time, it's just disappointing that, it's so European top heavy and dominated. I would be disappointed if anybody from a sector of the world was able to dominate. If three Japanese guys came in and finished 1, 2, 3, I would feel the same way just in that standpoint. I'd also kind of, feel the same way if three American guys, if we were looking at a 1, 2, 3, Turk, Matfield, Vaughn, I think I'd feel the same way. I don't want to see anyone in particular, that's kind of putting a domination on the field. And it's not even that. I mean, if you want to pull up the standings, James Dean finished with 595 points, Frederick Aasbo 591, Pittior 507. Okay, so these three guys are in the 500 club.
Right.
Fourth place is Chris Forsberg at 399, not even in the 400. So it was it's literally a European distinction and domination of the sport. And listen, I don't know. To me, it's an issue of a lot of things. Why are these European drivers so far advanced? What's wrong with our Pro 2 system? What's wrong with our Pro-Am system? Where is this disconnect? I mean, you can just kind of spiral out of control into all these different issues that this thing, can mean. Obviously, Forsberg, I think, had a little bit of a fluke season with this VQ project that was a disaster. And we'll actually touch on Justin Pawlak, who finished 5th, who I think has a real shot at stepping up next year. But I don't know. It's just kind of something that I observed when I was looking at it. I was like, man, this is a guy from Ireland, a guy from Norway, and a guy from Poland have just cleaned house in this series.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, listen, I understand your point. I guess, this is the deal. I mean, it's, and Forsberg, I mean, he probably would have been, if that VQ thing hadn't really thrown a wrench into some plans, he probably would have had a higher point standing. But
if you start playing that game, I mean, if Frederick Aasbo beats
all right,
and he's champion, I mean, you can extrapolate that kind of forever.
Who, I mean, this is so random and off the topic here, but who randomly just keeps looking super incredible? Ken Gucci goes out there and he lays down some runs and you just you look at him and you're like, this guy's he's an incredible driver. It just blows me away how he hasn't been able to put it together and really get it done. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I mean, I don't want to throw anyone under the bus, but like you would have to imagine that I think there's an issue beyond Kengushi that is the problem. And I just speculate on that because it seems like every time Kengushi is losing, it's because, I don't know, his transmission is on the floor or his turbo has grenaded or like, I don't know. Every time Kengushi loses a battle, it seems like when he speaks or he talks, they're coming to an event. It's like, oh, we've blown 17 motors this season and 42 transmissions. Hopefully this one works for 3 laps. It's like, I don't know if like they're on a lower budget as opposed to like Aasbo or some of these guys, or there's something there because when he's feeling it, when that car works, he's killing it.
Yeah.
I don't know. He's always kind of had a rough Long Beach, so I mean that doesn't help. But even Texas, like historically, he's really good at it. He went out really early, I think top 32. But I agree. I think he's a championship contender if he could. I think if you put Kengushi in Frederick Aasbo's car with Papadakis and that whole setup, I think he could win a championship tomorrow.
Right.
No doubt in my mind. But
it's strange. I watch him on the bank at Irwindale, and it almost like time machines me back to so many years ago. Yeah. So it's just he's such an OG,
He's a ripper, man. I mean, for sure. And he hasn't won an event since Houston 2005.
Right.
I think that's correct. I don't want to take it away from him if he's won something else, but I don't think he's won since Houston 2005 and back when he was the first Mustang driver back when.
Right. Yeah.
I'm fact checking myself while you speak, but
that's all right. We're gonna move on anyway because that was completely random shot in the dark.
That is correct though. One ever win, 2005 Houston.
It's baffling. If you would ask me that without stats, I would tell you were wrong.
Yeah, I hear you.
I know. All right, point number 4, Justin Pawlak was the secret championship contender you didn't think about.
Yeah, man. I mean, once again, he's one of those guys who lurks. He's always kind of around. I mean, 2011, which I mentioned, my favorite Formula Drift event, Irwindale, he spun out. All he had to do was drive 30 more feet across the finish line and he would have been champion.
Right.
And I don't know why, but like a lot of times you don't think about him as a champion or like a champion contender. He's a little more low key, like on the media side, I think.
Yeah, I agree.
He's not as like, he's just not as loud, right? He's not like telling you about what he's doing all the time. Yeah, which I can respect. It's a different take. It's a different perspective. He's like, he wants to do his talking on the track, I guess, so to speak.
Right.
But I mean, honestly, like the reason he was actually the last point that I made. I had made everything. I didn't realize I had skipped that number. I was
right.
Man, what to talk about? And I was like, I don't want to, keep harping on the Wordhouse deal and Aasbo. And like, I was like, everything had been kind of beat to death. And I was like kind of lost. I was like, I don't really know where to go with this. There were so many like subplots. Like I kind of wanted to talk about how few accidents there were. I thought that was really interesting. Like I also wanted to talk about how like even when we got to top 32, like the battles were really good. Like it wasn't like a build up, right? Like just out of the gate. So there were a lot of angles I was looking at. And then I popped over, looked at the championship standings. It's like, holy crap. I was like, Justin Pawlak finished in 5th place. And like, I don't even think anyone mentioned him in that way. It was just something that totally caught me off guard. And I felt like if it caught me off guard, it probably would catch most people off guard. I mean, he finished only 8 points behind Forsberg. So, a couple qualifiers going the wrong way. They switched, Pawlak really choked in Atlanta, I think. And so, like, one of those things goes the wrong way. He's in 4th. I mean, obviously still, 200 points behind Dean. So it's not like he was, like, genuinely going to win. But he just did really good. And he was just really consistent all year. He got points on the board all season. His worst finish was Irwindale. So,
Right.
I mean, you consider that he doesn't lose to Castro. He finishes fourth. So he was right there. And, I mean, he's been there before, like I mentioned, 2011. Spin, he's out. Maybe he's the guy to watch for 2019. I mean, these Mustangs feel really on the brink of like another like push, I mean, look how Vaughn finished Irwindale. I mean, I think Denofa won fan favorite and hardest charging for the season in Formula D.
Yeah.
Like the award banquet. So I don't know. There's something brewing with the Mustangs. I think if somebody can take out Dean, I think I'm looking to some of these Mustangs to kind of like.
This is like, we can't even fit. This is like Pro 2.
I know.
All right. All right. Point noted.
I think we're good.
All right. Point number 3, the 99 score qualifying run we were so close. So close that, right? Because Tanner Faust is the only one that currently holds a 100-point qualifying run.
Yeah, I don't really want to talk about this one very long.
I know you don't.
Okay, but yeah, it sucks. I mean, I honestly don't think that was a 100-point run from Dean, but it's like, come on, we're just gonna throw out. I mean, I thought 99 was maybe a bit generous, but I don't know. I just want to get rid of qualifying altogether.
Wow. Okay, we're just all right. Well, we're gonna save that one for another time.
Okay, fair enough.
You're getting rid of qualifying. Okay. Point number 2, Vaughn redeems his season.
So, I guess Vaughn was on track to have one of the worst seasons in his career. And I mean, he was pretty open about it. If you go to the Formula D YouTube channel, and they highlighted all 4 drivers that had been around since the beginning. I think there's only 4. Yeah, Vaughn,
right.
Forsberg, Daiushihara, and Kenguchi. Which all 4 of the videos are really interesting. If you've got like 30 minutes to kill, I think you can bang them all out. Really kind of neat perspectives, how they got there, how they got into. Dai talks about selling stuff on eBay, living here, and Forsberg, talks about how he just came out here and was like, I don't know, it's all pretty cool. I think you should watch them all if you have some time. Just find them on the Formula Drift YouTube channel. But Vaughn was like, look, I'm having my worst season ever. Like, this sucks. Like, I need to turn this thing around, blah, blah, blah. And I hadn't really realized how bad he had done. I mean, he was pretty high up in the championship. He was, he finished well behind his teammate.
Right.
Like, the car that he builds and runs.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. I mean, I think it was great for him. I think it was a good, I don't know. So when he's in the zone, man, you can see it early in the event. You're like, dude, no one's beating this guy. The battle with him and Denofa was sick. Denofa kind of blew it and gave it to him, I think, a little bit. But, Vaughn held strong and drove really well. And, I don't know. It's interesting. Like, there's a thing with, like, in pro athletics, I think a lot of times that, his wife is pregnant, which is pretty public. Like, they post about it online and stuff all the time. But
yeah,
there's an interesting, there's definitely usually like big lulls in like professional athletes, like when they're like in pregnancy and when they have newborns. I'm a big soccer fan. There's like a really big star on the LA Galaxy whose wife had a baby this year, and he's just like kind of a suck fest. But he's probably waking up at 2 a.m. to a crying baby, and when you're talking about something that's like such a high level of performance, like little things make a difference, right? Waking up in the middle of the night is the difference between your muscle memory being like, oh, brake now, gas, and you hitting somebody and not. So I don't know. It's just kind of interesting. I think it was probably a good morale boost for him moving into next season. I think he'd have been really bummed if, you take away his 100 points. Like, let's say he didn't even qualify this event. He falls all the way to 16th.
Yeah. Where did they finish off? Where did him and Chelsea finish off?
So Chelsea finished in 8th with 361 points. Vaughn finished 13th with 329, and that was after his 103-point Irwindale. Finishing outside the well, like I said, I kind of split the 2 fields.
The top 16.
To be a factory backed, probably almost an unlimited piggy bank team compared to some of these other guys, and to be 16th, like at the bottom of the top part of the field, it's pretty amazing. So.
Yeah, I get you. But listen, things happen. It was nice to see them end the season with him and Chelsea on the podium.
I agree. It was cool. And I think that's the message. That's to the Wardhouse team from the Mustangs. Like, hey, bro, we can be up here too.
I like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We should have a team battle.
I'm all in.
So I guess we're moving on to point number 1, the last and final point of the season here. Back to back by 4 points. That's what we're talking about. 4 points.
Yeah, and I mean, if you want to eliminate qualifying, like I would love to,
right?
Things might have not gone that way. It actually looks like, if you eliminate qualifying scores, Aasbo is clearly easily the champion. So I don't know. It was crazy.
I don't know that helps you, by the way, with your European drift takeover.
Obviously not, but we need a lot more than qualifying to help the Americans out. Need like a cylinder handicapped. The more cylinders you get, the more points you get for each round. That'd be great.
Right. We could do it.
Aasbo would be real bummed on that one with his,
right.
with his 4-cylinder. But Dean Kearney would be bummed.
Right.
I don't know, man. It kind of came down to the last minute. I mean, what's funny is like the biggest enemy or like hurdle for James and Petiora this year was themselves.
Yeah.
Like they were kind of battling and like blowing up engines and exploding vehicles. Anytime those two guys looked at each other, those cars just spontaneously combust into dust.
Right.
So, you eliminate them losing to themselves, and I think it's anybody's game.
Yeah.
I don't know. I hope they come back. I'm proud. Congrats. James Dean's now the second ever driver to be a back-to-back champion in Formula D.
Yeah.
It will be.
He's a great driver.
It will be effing crazy if he can three-peat it. That'd be insane.
Yeah.
I think if he wins the three-peat, I think he should just retire. Sorry, guys. Like
that's it.
It's too boring for me. Going home.
Hang up the banner. We did it. It's over.
I mean, if he three-peats, it's like, I don't know. You could basically make like drifting the national sport of Ireland at that point.
Okay.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah, well, Connor's kind of had a rough go, so.
Yeah, Ireland needs a new hero.
Right. James Dean.
And I mean, nothing's worse than Gaelic football or whatever that nonsense is they play over there. So.
I'm not going to comment on it. I don't need any more hate mail.
Yeah.
So,
does the podcast get hate mail?
No.
Oh, okay.
Luckily.
I was like, can you forward me some of that?
Is there enough people listening yet that we should get hate mail?
I'm sure. I mean, if you got 2 people listening, I'm sure one person has a negative opinion towards you.
Well, especially towards me. Yeah, that's for sure.
Have you watched Gaelic football though?
What?
Have you watched Gaelic football before?
No.
Okay, you should Google that later. It's like spelled Gaelic football. It's so weird, but it's really popular in Ireland.
Okay, I mean, I'll check it out, but after that stunning review, I don't know that I really want to.
I mean, I'm just saying the Irish don't have, I think they should back James Dean over Gaelic football. That's all I'm saying.
I'm saying James Dean, Ireland hero. That's where it's at.
I agree.
So that's it, man. We've wrapped it up. I thank you for doing all these podcasts for the season, and for those who listened, I thank you for listening. We appreciate it.
Woo-hoo.
It's nice to. I know, can't even fit my arms in the frame. So, there's many me arms. So, but yeah, we appreciate if you guys have been listening the time. For the people that are, we appreciate it. We hope that we made it somewhat interesting at some point in time, and that we gave you some value here. So, if you have any feedback, any comments you want to send through, go ahead and send them over to us. We'd like to hear them. Hopefully, we'll be back doing this again next season. I think that would be pretty cool. Maybe we'll get better. Maybe there'll be animations. There'll be dancing. I don't know. Something cool.
I'm excited. You sold me. I'm in.
We may even figure out how to get a good internet connection between two computers across the country.
Let's not make too many promises.
Right. I understand. We're going to baby step it. We're going to go for the dancing first.
Yeah, that sounds way more accomplishable.
But that's it. It was a good season. I think it was interesting. There were some highs, there were some lows, and we're done now. So we're moving on. So that's it. You have anything else you want to say? Or are we good?
I think I'm pretty good. I mean, I'm glad I'm such a better co-host than Luke Manel.
What does that mean? I thought his podcast was good.
No, it's pretty great. I don't know.
Right, there's more podcasts, everyone. If you've only been listening to the FD ones, go listen to the other ones.
Yeah, skip the Luke Manel one, but the rest of them, I'm sure.
No, it's good. Go listen to that too, especially if you like photography.
No, it is pretty cool. I listened to it this morning.
Did you?
I did, but it was kind of funny. So behind the curtain, like Luke's my old roommate,
right? Before
I moved in with my now wife, so it's just kind of funny to hear him talk about stuff. But he did good. You guys had a pretty interesting conversation. As someone that doesn't really love photography anymore, I've fallen way out of love. I used to be in love, and now I'm no longer in love because I have iPhone and it takes great photos. Good.
Don't say things like that.
But it was cool. It was pretty interesting. If you're an aspiring photographer, aspiring to be in media, I think even if you want to do videos in the industry, I think Luke actually gave more inside tips than I would have. Right. I think the way he breaks down how he broke into the industry, presented himself and things, and Luke and I actually started doing photography around the same time. We both shot for Tunerzine, which is how I initially met Luke, which is a super throwback to,
Yeah, Jason.
Yeah, Jason Sue. Who knows what that guy's doing these days? But I mean, yeah, out of your listeners, 1/100% of them probably went to tunerzine.com. Even a lot of the photographers that are around now kind of passed through, and then there was the other side, which was J-Tuned.
Right.
Tunerzine was all the East Coast kids, and J-Tuned was all the
West Coast stuff. Yeah.
I mean, it's a shame that something like that doesn't exist anymore. But anyway, I think, like I said, if you're aspiring to be in media in this industry, I think you should listen to Luke's podcast.
Yeah, it was a good one. And if you're a photographer, especially an automotive photographer, you should definitely go listen. And not just because we did one, but because Luke, especially in the last half of the podcast, he really gave some really good tips about setting yourself up to shoot an event and how to position yourself and how do you think about gear and kind of how do you begin to take yourself through the advanced stages and thought processes of being a photographer and to some of the things that I think happens once you've kind of mastered a lot of the technical parts of your skill. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, for sure.
So that was good. But I don't want to bore anybody else with more podcast stuff. We're going to wrap up. This is an FD podcast. We got completely out of control. But, hey, listen.
It's the end of the season.
It's our podcast.
It's the end of the season. We do whatever we want.
Right. There's going to be a party after this. We don't know. So, all right. That's it. Joey, why don't you tell people where to find you once again on Instagram?
It is my name, JoeyRedmond. You can find tons of non-car content there to check out anytime.
That's right. All right, that's a wrap. For more info on the podcast, head over to konigwheels.com/podcast. If you have been enjoying what we've been doing here, please go ahead and subscribe. We're on iTunes, Google Play, and the full video episodes are always on YouTube. We usually don't even cut them, but this one's going to be chopped up because Joey has no internet reception. You can also catch us on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube at Konig Wheels USA. All right, we're out of here. Till next season. Peace.